Time goes by and yet I wonder, are you and me still the same? Are you still loving the game? I know I don't. You cast your spell and I went under. I know the laughter and the pain. Will I ever?
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. It's an engaging and enlightening talk show on life, relationships, and the business of life. Grab a cup of juice and just chill. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Live life. Live fully.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
It's a pleasure to have you once again on the show. My name is Omobola Stephen, your host on Life Well Lived. Well, if you would like to catch up with any missed episodes of Life Well Lived, you can go online and search for Life Well Lived on any podcast distribution platforms you bump into online, and you have an amazing time listening to the show. Kevin Palmieri is on the show with me today. Kevin is the host of Next Level University, rated amongst the top 100 global podcasts. Welcome with me on the show today, Kevin Palmieri.
Thank you so very much for having me. Like I said, my goal is to bring the energy, and hopefully I can bring some wisdom as well. And
thank you so much. Once again.
Of course.
Sure. I'm looking forward to that. I'm loving the energy already. So going by one of your quotes, you said some people find the rock bottom. I found out that rock bottom has a basement. What led you to the conclusion?
So when I was in my mid-20s, I, by all standards, was very successful. I had a high-paying job. My girlfriend was a model. I was a bodybuilder. I had the body of my dreams, the car of my dreams. I had a brand new place where I lived, and everything seemed amazing. And I was very insecure deep down. I was very depressed. I was very anxious. And my girlfriend at the time left me. And when she left me, for the first time probably in my life, I looked in the mirror of who I really was as a man, and I didn't like what I saw. So that was my rock bottom. I'm living in this nice place all by myself. My bills have just doubled. I'm lonely. I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure out who I am as a man. And that was when I first started self-improvement. I first started personal development. I was reading books and I was listening to positive affirmations. And I used to, before I went to bed every night, I would say, I am handsome, I am talented, I am worthy, I am intelligent. And this year I will make the most money I've ever made in my entire life. And the next year started and I got a promotion at my job and I was traveling all over the place. Out of the 12 months, I was on the road for 10 months of the next year. So out of the year, I was living in hotels to hotels to hotels for 10 months. I was only home, 4 or 5 days a month. And that was very, very difficult, but I was making a lot of money. So I enjoyed it. And we got to the end of the year and I was standing at my kitchen table with my final pay stub. And my goal was to make 6 figures. And I was standing at my kitchen table because my ex-girlfriend took our kitchen chairs and I never bought new ones because I was never home. So it didn't matter. And I opened my pay stub and I made over $100,000 at the age of 26 with no college degree. And although I think I should have felt amazing, I didn't feel amazing. I realized in that moment that I was still insecure. I was still depressed. I was still hoping that all these external results would bring me internal happiness and fulfillment. And that's when I started a podcast. I started a podcast shortly after that because for most of my life, I was living unconscious. I started a podcast called Hyperconscious. And that was my initial dive into the podcast game. And as I began podcasting more and more, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed having the conversations. People were reaching out saying, hey, I really learned a lot. You helped me change the way I think. You got to keep doing this. And it got harder and harder to go to work. It got harder and harder to show up and do something that wasn't aligned with my life's purpose, which I felt. And I started calling out of work. I started showing up late. I started leaving early. My heart wasn't in it anymore. And I was in a crusty hotel room in New Jersey. It was a cold winter morning. And I was sitting on the edge of the hotel bed, lacing up my work boots. And we were supposed to go to a school to do some work that day. I was in construction. And the best way to explain it is there's 10 televisions on in my head at the same time. And every single one of those televisions is on a different channel. And it's just all of my limiting beliefs talking to me. You're stuck here. You can never leave this job. What will your friends think? What will your family think? Maybe this is as good as it gets. Do you really think you can be a successful podcaster? And in that moment, this was my rock bottom basement moment. I genuinely believe that if I took my life, I would take my problems with me. And that was the darkest hole I'd ever been in. Now, luckily, I didn't, obviously, because I'm still here. I reached out to one of my friends and now my business partner, co-host, and said, hey, I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling down. I'm feeling dark. What do I do? And he gave me some advice. And 2 or 3 months later, I left my job and I went full-time into speaking, coaching, podcasting, and consulting. Obviously, things have changed and now we're doing very well, but we were not doing very well in the beginning. So I always want to make that known that I didn't go from quitting my job to 850 episodes. That took a long time and a lot of pain and discomfort, unfortunately.
Right. Now, Kevin, while you were talking about your background, your experience, I wanted to ask you this question. What led you really to this negative vibes, the depression that you had during this period? Do you think something led you to that? What situation, what circumstances led you to that moment?
I grew up in a single parent household. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. I didn't meet my father until I was 27. And I think that I internalized most of that. And I think that's where I got a lot of my lack. I think that's where I got a lot of my insecurity, not feeling good enough subconsciously, because if I was quote unquote good enough, the father figure that I needed never would have left. And I don't think I ever did the inner work necessary to heal my inner child, to heal that part of me that was missing. And I think I deep down believe that success would make all of that go away and more money would make me feel better about myself. And when I started to do the internal work, that's when things really started to shift. And I think that's what it was. I think it was the childhood and growing up the way I did without a dad and never coming to terms with what that actually meant for me. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, sure. I always believe that looking inward is always the best solution or best answers to most of the questions we ask the world, because the world cannot or can never give us the answers that we need in life, except we look inwards. Then, things can only get better when we do that. Absolutely. Now, so how can a person begin to experience shift in their life? Is there any tools, right, that can help them to achieve this?
Well, I think that you have to understand that what you're doing today, your beliefs, your goals, your dreams, your ambitions, your fears, all of those are conditioned into you. You didn't grow up being afraid of public speaking. You didn't grow up being afraid of failure. We all failed as children. I fell off my bike many times. I'm sure I failed at many of the things I did when I was young, right? Understand this.
Including me.
Right. Of course. Understand that most of us were not raised in a household or an environment that convinced us that we were going to be successful. If you were raised in an environment where the people around you, surrounding you, supporting you said, you are so amazing, you can accomplish anything, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are beautiful, you are impressive, you are intelligent, you are a gift, versus, hey, don't do that. Hey, be quiet. Hey, don't be the center of attention. Hey, you don't want people not to like you, right? Hey, if you have strong opinions, people are going to look down on you. Those are two different lives. So understand your thoughts, your fears, your inner dialogue is most likely not yours. It has most likely been picked up over the years by the people that you looked up to, you looked across to, you looked down to, whatever it is. Most of your thoughts, your beliefs are conditioned. And because your thoughts, your beliefs, your fears, maybe your ambition, that's conditioned, a lot of your behaviors are conditioned too, but you'll never understand the differentiating things because you're not digging in. You got to dig into the identity part first, and then your behavior can start to shift after that.
Oh, great. Let's talk consistency here. It's easier said than done, right? Is it in habit? And also, I would love you to tell me the reason why people struggle with inconsistencies and some, important steps they can take for them to overcome consistency.
So I will say this. I like to say this because I think this breaks the pattern loop. Humans are not bad at consistency. They're bad at positive consistency. So we are all consistent. It's usually consistency towards whatever is the most convenient. Okay. So if you hit the drive-through every day on your way to work and you spend $6, right? If you hit the drive-through and you get a coffee and a bagel and a donut, that's probably $7.50, $8 a day, but you do it consistently. Why? Because the barrier to entry is very low. So I think that we have an identity issue with, I'm not a consistent human being. That's not true. You are a consistent human being. It's just not in the things that are best serving you. That's the first step. And then I think a lot of it is the dialogue. If you are the type of person, and there's a reason I'm using those words, type of person. If you're the type of person who believes you're not the type of person who goes to the gym, you probably won't be in shape. If you're the type of person who says, I'm not good with money, I never have been, and I never will be, you most likely won't. If you're the type of person who says, I attract negativity into my life, you most likely will, because that is what you are believing about yourself. And we act in direct belief to who we think we are. So you have to start with consistency. You have to start with the identity portion. Why aren't you the type of person who is into fitness? Why? Like, what is it? What is the deeper layer of why? Well, I've never been. Okay, well, you never will be unless you start now. What can we start to instill in you when it comes to your identity? So I think the other part of it is you don't have, not you specifically, the collective you don't have the goals that will require the positive consistencies that you want. So it's very easy to say, hey, I want to exercise more, and then not do it. But what if you either set a reward or something painful at the end of every day I don't exercise that I say I'm going to, I am going to put $1 into a jar. And at the end of however many days or months, I am going to throw all that money away. I guarantee you'd be more likely to go to the gym, or you'd be more likely to read 10 pages a day or meditate every day or whatever it may be. So I think a lot of people just don't have the why power. Don't say you're going to do something and just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Why are you going to do it? Why do you want to be consistent? Like, let's get real and let's really, really attach some emotion to those outcomes. And this is the last thing I would say. You need to find accountability with other human beings. So we have a 13-person global team. Everybody's stats are on the same board. So everybody does 12 habits a day, and we spit out a percentage at the end, and the rest of the team can see how everybody is doing. I can guarantee I get better scores because I know everybody else on the team can see what I'm doing and they're looking up to me to be consistent. So that social aspect of it is also big. Find an accountability partner, find an accountability group, hire a trainer, hire a coach, whatever it may be. Sometimes you have to pay for accountability. Sometimes you have to pay for consistency. That's okay. That's okay, especially if you have the means to do it. Not everybody does, but.
Sure, absolutely. Kevin, you keep emphasizing on identity. Mm-hmm. What's the importance of understanding our identity in life?
Everything that you experience through life is seen through the glass of your identity. I remember for the longest time, and this will be good. This will be a good story. For the longest time, I always said, I'm shy. I'm not the type of person to raise my hand and ask questions. How many opportunities did I lose out on because that was my identity? It's not real. It's not real. It's not who I am as a person. It's what I believe about myself. So one day, my business partner and I went to Boston because we lived in Massachusetts, just outside Boston. And there's a speaker. She's a coach. She's a podcaster. She's an author. Her name is Lori Harder. She's very big in the self-improvement space. She had a live book signing. And Alan, my co-host, and I went. And I said in that room, I said, I have to raise my hand and ask a question here. I have to. I adopted the identity of somebody who raises their hand and asks questions. Now, every time I'm in a room with somebody who I believe is ahead of me that I can learn from,